So I've got a few more thoughts on the Underdark or Under whatever, specifically as it relates to Greyhawk, and especially I want to know what the heck is up with Shrine of the Kuo-Toa today on Greyhawk Grognard. So, a couple of things. First of all, the name. In the world of Greyhawk, because this is going to be specifically about the Underdark in the world of Greyhawk. I'm not going to be talking about things like the Forgotten Realms and Night Below and all that stuff, which really, really expanded out the concept way past what you originally saw in Greyhawk. And originally it was the modules D1, D2, and D3, Descent into the Depths of the Earth, Shrine of the Kuo-Toa, and Vault of the Drow that introduced this concept. And what we're seeing on the screen here is the map of that's used in there. And that dark band that goes from the bottom right to the upper left, that is the player map. That's essentially the path the players are supposed to go through in the adventure series. Now, it's important to know that in the world of Greyhawk, in these three modules, it's never called the Underdark. That's a Forgotten Realms thing. That was invented by Ed Greenwood for the Forgotten Realms, as far as I'm aware. It was not used in Greyhawk originally. In Greyhawk, it's just called the Underworld. And I think that is an important point, is that in Greyhawk, what we think of today as the Underdark was not necessarily what was originally envisioned as the Underdark, as the Underworld. And one of the things I want you to take a look at on this map, well, there's a lot of things I want you to take a look at this map. One of the things is you'll notice it's a very busy map. There are passages and encounter areas everywhere. There's almost no areas of this map that aren't on the edges where you're more than one hex away from a passage or an encounter area. If you look down in the lower left, assuming my lovely mug is not obscuring it, there are a couple of areas where you have to go a hex and a half to find a passage, but that's about it. There are no large blank areas. So it's a very busy, very full map. There's a lot of tunnels in this area. And that kind of squares with what we know of this area. Now, it's only 55 hexes high, which means that if you're comparing it to, if you're citing it on the World of Greyhawk map that was in the Gold Box or in From the Ashes, the Darlene map, it's not even 2 hexes high. It's just shy of 2 hexes. So this thing is very, very compact. And if you'll notice, look around the edges, there are literally only 3 passages, only 3 tunnels that go off this map. They're all on the left side. There's there's 3 secondary tunnels that go off the map, and the river. The river goes off the map as well. Other than that, this is all self-contained, except in the upper right where you have the Sunless Sea. And obviously the Sunless Sea spills off the edge of the map and we don't know what's on the other side. So in terms of how far does the Underworld go in Greyhawk, the map really seems to imply that it's a very localized phenomenon. It's in that area where the Hellrakers, why am I having a I'm having a thing. Oh, the Hell Furnaces. Jesus, I don't know what. Yeah, the Hell Furnaces meet the Crystal Mist Mountains in that really thick area of the Darlene map. In the lower left, in the southwest corner, that's where you really see these 2 hexes worth of Underworld with all these tunnels and encounters and everything. And a couple of the passages do go off to the left, which makes sense because that goes off into where there's more mountains, right? That's the direction where there's more and thicker and presumably higher mountains. So this area of Underworld, this world of the tunnels and caverns and such, only goes where there are very big mountains. As you go off to the east, the mountains go away because then you're into the Yeomanry and Sterich and so forth. And you'll notice there are no passages that lead off in that direction. There are a couple. There's one that kind of goes east and then just stops. So there are dead ends even on this map, and you can tell that they're meant to stop because the other. There are features that go all the way to the edge. So if something doesn't go to the edge, presumably that's intentional. Except for the Sunless Sea, which has that one big island in the middle of it, which presumably is still under that area where the crystal mists and the hell furnaces meet. This is a very isolated region, right? And that distinguishes it from the Forgotten Realms, where you have the implication is that the Underdark is kind of everywhere, right? There are Underdark connections to a whole bunch of different things, and it's pretty much wherever you go in the Forgotten Realms. There's Underdark and there's Drow and there's Kuo-Toas and Mind Flayers and whatever underneath you. In Greyhawk, that's not necessarily the case. And I think that's a very important point, that in Greyhawk we seem to be seeing the version of the Underdark where it is localized, right? You'll have, in one area, you'll have a big, busy piece of Underdark, and then in another area, you'll have perhaps another big couple hexes worth of busy Underdark, Underworld. I'm conditioned to say Underdark, and I'm trying to say Underworld, and so forth. So you could just have a couple of patches here and there throughout the Flanaess, rather than that big, expansive, all-pervading Underworld that you see in the Forgotten Realms. And I think that's important, that the only place you see the tunnels going off the map is where there's into the thicker mountainous area. So that's my first takeaway from this, is that A, it's very dense, presumably because this is a volcanic region of the Flanaess, and B, it is very localized because it doesn't go anywhere to the east or the north. So that's my first point on this. And speaking of that, if we break out Ye Olde Dungeoneer's Survival Guide on page 71, it gives the different theories of how the Underdark is organized, and one of them is the isolated pockets theory. And it says, this explanation is the least imaginative of the theories, but fits most closely with present observation of the underground regions. So that's really what you're seeing, in my opinion, at least in Greyhawk. Now, it's also important to note, we know of one other canonical source of, from the modules and everything, where there is another connection to the Underdark, Underworld, and that is right around the city of Greyhawk, under the ruins of Castle Greyhawk. We know that there's a connection to the Underworld there. So that also fits in because that's near the Cairn Hills. So you have an uplands where you're going to see these tunnels and everything. It also makes sense that one of the throwaway lines in the description of Temple of Elemental Evil is that the Drow have been seen skulking about at night, and that actually makes sense when you think about it, because if we don't have an all-pervasive underworld that is a couple hundred feet below everywhere in the Flanaess, then that means that the Drow don't necessarily have a superhighway everywhere they want to go, and they just spring up wherever they want to be. They go as far as the underworld will take them, then they have to travel above ground, and naturally being Drow, they have to do so at night. So I think the evidence really does point in favor of this, where you can have just a few pockets here and there, and I kind of like that more than having just the all-pervasive Underdark idea. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is Shrine of the Kuo-Toa. This was one of the first modules I ever bought. and it confused the hell out of me at the time because it's got that crazy map with the dotted lines showing you what's underneath what. I mean, this is not something you want to throw somebody into into the deep end when they don't know how to swim. No pun intended. But I've been thinking about this, and I'm trying to figure out what purpose this serves in the narrative structure of the D series of modules, because you have D1, which is the first, obviously the first one that you meet, the first place you go after defeating the fire giants, right? You're following the Drow through the tunnels, and you have this. And this serves a definite narrative purpose, because when you go through the encounters in this module, you're seeing that there are different factions of the Drow. You're seeing the different merchant houses. You're seeing the pins with the different merchant clans and so forth. And you're able to actually get intelligence about them from the mind flayers if you play it right. And you can physically get the different pins that if you play it right, you can get the pins, and you can later on use them to gain entrance into Errol Haikinlu and muck around with the different houses and so forth, and infiltrate the city and so forth. And of course, D3 is where that's the highlight of the series. You find the city of the Drow. You go to Lolth's temple, the Fane of Lolth, and so forth, and that eventually will take you to the finale of the series. But where does that leave D2? It doesn't really seem to have any narrative point. There's no information that you can get in here that applies to here that you can't already get here. And in fact, there are fewer opportunities to do so. There are the Snurf-Neblin, the deep gnomes, and they can give you some, they're semi-friendly, and you can get some intelligence out of them, but mostly about the Kuo-Toas, and not necessarily about the Drow. So this really doesn't seem to have a lot of purpose, other than we need to throw another roadblock against the players before they get to the big finale. It almost seems, and in that respect, it's kind of like the glacial rift of the frost giant Jarl, where it's just kind of there to have more encounters and wear down the party some more and give them some more treasure and so forth. It doesn't serve any narrative point that I can figure out, and D2 is like that as well. It's basically just there as an encounter to give the PCs an opportunity to fight some gogglers or prove that they're smart and just evade the thing almost entirely by taking the advice of the Snurf-Neblin. But so in that respect, I think it would actually be possible to play this series without this module at all and not miss it. I mean, obviously, encounters for the sake of encounters are a thing that is as old as D&D. That's fine. But in a set of modules where you're saying you have a story, this doesn't fulfill any purpose in that story. So while I don't dislike it, I in fact, it's one of my favorite modules because it is such an interesting and unique situation that the PCs have to get through. I question its utility from a story point of view, and I question what the PCs can get out of this that they absolutely need in order to function properly in D3. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm forgetting something. I mean, it's been a long time since I've bought this, and not quite as long since I've played it or run it. But maybe I'm missing something. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Greyhawk with its localized pockets of Underworld regions. I think that's borne out by the map and by where we, what we read about it in the later sources, compared to what we see in other campaign settings where it's more ubiquitous. And the function of D2 more as an opportunity to have yet another interesting encounter, rather than having a functional storytelling purpose for the module, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just pointing out that you could take it out and just go from D1 to D3 and really not miss it. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments. I know this is a topic that usually hits some buttons for some people. So don't forget too that people on my Patreon actually get to see my videos, my Thursday videos, 2 weeks before the rest of the world. So if you want to see these before the hoi polloi, please do check out the Patreon below. And other than that, hope you have a wonderful day. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you later. Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day.